Someone has stepped across the threshold this evening as our newest house guest. They're crossing over from the normal world into our haunted house. Welcome to the Looks Creepy Cool podcast, part of Haunted House FearFest. I'm your host, Renee, and tonight I'm joined by filmmakers Jessica and Barrett Burgin, the duo behind the horror short The Angel, which is nominated for Best Paranormal Short at the 2025 Haunted House FearFest Festival. Jessica Burgin has worked on major brand and film productions, including HBO, 5 and 2 Studios, BYU TV, and LG. Most recently, she served as production coordinator on Artifact War, which premiered at the Austin Film Festival. The Angel marks her directorial debut. Barrett Burgin is an award-winning writer and director. His debut feature, Cry-O, was acquired by Saban Films and spotlighted by Screen Rant and Comic Book Resources. His films have been selected at CineQuest, FilmQuest, Flickr's Vortex, and Blood in the Snow. And together, they created a pioneer folk horror unlike anything we've seen. Two plural wives receive a mysterious visitation amidst the blood-red stone of southern Utah, and what they encounter is not of this world. The Angel also features legendary creature performer Doug Jones, who has been in films like Pan's Labyrinth, Hellboy, and The Shape of Water, bringing their mythology to terrifying life. Now, together, we will wander room by room through the haunted house and uncover what makes this film so creepy cool. Let's step inside. Hi, guys. How are you this evening?
Doing great. Thank you so much for having us.
Yeah,
This is really fun.
thanks for
Awesome. No, I'm super excited too. And just so like I call my audience, they're called the watchers of the house. They listen and they'll also watch the video as well. And so since you guys are new to the house, we're going to go from room to room. So guys, and also if I have some new listeners here, so the creepy kitchen is where they'll share their ingredient of fear. The library of shadows is what inspired our house guests. The mirror room, which reflects on their horror origin story. The basement stairs reveals industry secrets or lessons. The attic call, where they talk about what's pulling them forward. And the final room, where they share the most creepiest moment and the most coolest moment. Now, guys, we might not make it through every room. It really depends upon how the interview goes. And you're always welcome to come back to the house if you make it out alive. So
Love-
awesome. Sorry, go ahead. Sorry.
I was just saying this is perfect.
yeah,
This is
such a
perfect.
fun for.
Yeah.
Very excited.
Woo! Awesome. Okay, so when I saw your film, and we're in the creepy kitchen now, we're in the creepy kitchen now, and so one thing I was dying to ask you now that you're on the interview is, what was the moment on set where you looked at each other and thought, "Wow, this is haunting"?
That we know both.
A few come to mind for me, but
Yeah, you go ahead.
I think for me it was without. I suppose it's fine if we give away a little bit.
You
of
just
what
say
happens for
there's
this.
a certain moment
Yeah,
when somebody does something.
yeah. There's a moment, sort of the climactic moment of the film, when some of our main characters are making some pretty intense choices, and the way that we had the lighting set up in there, and the expression, especially in our lead actor's face, I was like, wow, this is more intense and perfect than I think we even envisioned before going into the film. For me, that was just a very powerful moment of like, oh, this is really leaning into those scary horror vibes that we wanted to capture.
Yeah, I actually had a different one. It's right toward the end of the film. There's a particular scream by a character. And of course, any horror film, you want to have a good scream in there, but this one carries a lot of emotional weight. And the place where it happened is so echoey and big, and we were shooting it at night, and like in this southern Utah canyon, it echoed through the entire canyon, and to the point where people who were about a mile away thought there was like an animal dying or hyenas or something
Oh my
like
God.
these. I mean, not hyenas. Sorry. Yeah, a hyena had transported over. Yeah, no, coyotes. Yeah, they thought there were coyotes there, and I actually got tears in my eyes because I thought, oh my gosh, like, is the actress like okay? Like, she gave a lot, and I remember running over to her and being like, are you good? We
Yeah.
both did, and then she popped out and she was like, yeah, do you want me to do another one? And I
She
just
was so good at just quickly shifting.
and that moment I was like, oh, we got, especially in that particular take, it's like we got some pretty blood curdling emotion there. So that hit me, as it scared me, like it kind of messed with me a little bit.
Wow. That is so In the film, that's amazing, first off. Like, you guys had 2 different, stories, but, like, each had, like, a different haunting element to it, which is amazing. And then in the film, like, it plays with, like, cosmic dread and, like, faith, and if fear was an ingredient in your film's recipe, what's the dominant flavor? Like, would it be revelation or terror or neither? It would be something entirely different.
Gosh, that's
That's a
such a
great
good
question.
question. I think
Yeah.
I have mine.
Okay. Yeah, I'll think about it.
I think it would be certainty. I know that's maybe a subversive word to use once you've watched the film, because we tried to do some kind of thematically subversive things with it, in that we know that the audience is going to approach it on kind of with sympathy for a particular character and for this particular character's experiences, and by the end we try to turn those on their head a little bit, but as a comment at, like, from whichever way you're coming at it when it comes to doubt and faith and fear. And so, yeah, for me, it's certainty.
Yeah. I think I'll just echo that. It's a good word to encapsulate, I think, the flavor overall that we're going for. There may be some others that are supportive of that.
What are your other flavors?
I think for me also it's I'm trying to now I'm just thinking of synonyms for certainty. I think questioning or like sort of a search for truth. I know that's more than one word. Yeah, interrogating is a good one. Sort of looking for answers and uh investigating.
Ooh, investigate.
That's I think the word I would use.
So
Which I think is good for work because it kind of helps build tension when the characters
Mystery.
is mystery, wanting something, trying to answer a question.
So certainty, investigating, mystery, I love it. And that leads me to my next question. So what was the hardest part of balancing like the spiritual cosmic tone with like the visceral horror of the movie, if that makes sense? And it seems like we're in the library of shadows now. So
Want to go first on this?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I think that's a really great question for this particular film. I think that something for us that was really helpful is we tried to really use the setting and let that work for us. We used some historic cabins that were actually like from that time period for our locations. And then also just leaning into like the mysterious red rock in the desert. The locations really lent themselves to finding that balance for sure.
I wander over to the bookshelf and remove the book.
I
And I, in
love it.
the library, I look up, Renee, and I said, the way that we balance the spirituality and the cosmicness and the horror, try to instead of setting out to make something scary,
Mm.
we tried to let the themes and ideas and the folklore and some of the existential dread from a place of real drama and real, like, lived 19th century people and spirituality, like getting into their headspace. We tried to let that inform the terror and let the terror grow naturally out of that. And Jessica put it so beautifully,
Yeah.
like by being in the space and letting the folklore within that southern Utah, because we both have pioneer ancestry. We had journals we could pull from that we got some inspiration. It's not based on a true story or a perceived true story, but
Maybe
it's inspired,
Exactly.
yes, by the beliefs of these people. And so as we grabbed the Robert Eggers book, we were like, it'd be historically accurate. So that's what we did, and that's what informed it.
Yeah, and go ahead.
So those journals, like, can you talk more about that? Were they passed on like from generation to generation, like in your family? That's an interesting story. Like, how do you guys each have journals?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, for me, I actually have so my mom grew up in like the Four Corners area in New Mexico. And her family has been sort of around that region for generations. So like areas of southern Utah where we filmed. And so I actually have ancestors who lived like just down the road from one of our main locations in the cave where we have our fantastic appearance of Doug Jones. Um, yeah, so they're just family stories that have been recorded and sort of like passed down and like, family
Digitized.
storybooks. And yeah, so there are stories that I read and have been familiar with for a few years. And we didn't necessarily pull from that directly for writing the story, but certainly once we got further into pre-production development, we're like, oh, let's mine and sort of get in the headspace of all these things that we can draw inspiration from for the scream.
But you do have a really cool one in particular, right? I remember
Yeah,
that
it's true.
they believed that like ghosts were coming and like assaulting them and taking their
Mhm.
stuff, and they had to bring,
Well,
you know,
I have this one
yeah, you
ancestor
remember that.
who had this like repeat experience where like every time her husband would leave her, or like leave the house during particularly vulnerable times. Like it was, I think the first time right before she was sick and she was expecting a child. Her husband left the house and then she had this experience where she describes feeling like someone's like holding her throat and like threatening to take her away. And her husband returns and like you know, does some sort of like blessing to like cast it away. And she says that the people told her they would return like when her child was born, which is kind of great, like this
Oh my
almost
God.
in kind of like folklore. And so then this actually happens. And when they come the first time, they also say that they've taken her aunt away. And they found out a few days later because, you know, it took time for like communication to occur. This was in the 19th century. Her aunt had passed away.
My God.
And,
So
when
desert, man.
she gives birth to their child and things are going pretty well, which is a big deal for that time because, like, mortality rate for
Right.
babies was, kind of scary, and she's doing okay, and her husband goes to leave the house to tell his mother, like, who lived down the road, like, "The baby's been born, you know, things are going well." He leaves, and these, like, entities return, and it's, like, the same thing where she feels like someone's holding her by the throat
Oh my God.
until he comes back in. She doesn't feel safe again, and, like, the moment he comes in and, like, does a, you know, whatever, like, blessing or prayer he does to cast it away, she, like, immediately returns to good health again. So, yeah,
Wow.
and,
That
like,
is
to mind,
Yeah,
you
so like
know?
we didn't take any one story, but
Yeah.
we definitely like tried to kind of live with the spirits of the ancestry of that time period and that belief. You know, I'll keep my comments on this pretty brief so we can keep exploring. Um, but like I have ancestors that lived in one of those. There's two little cabins. A lot of people don't know that they're two, but the two wives have these two separate cabins. And there's one called the Bahunan cabin that's like red brick, and like I have ancestors that lived there in that.
oh my God.
And a lot of the research we did too was like a lot of consulting with historians, reading historical documents, personal anecdotes to kind of get in the headspace. And then, of course, blending that with some of the ideological fears, both of like, oh, there's like, we're out in the middle of nowhere. Should we be doing this? Shouldn't we be doing this like way of life and religion and marriage? And also the United States is like, stop doing that. And we really tried to let the sort of metaphorical elements of the community not function as a real stand-in for any particular contemporary ideology, but rather we can all kind of map ourselves onto it in some way, and that's how we
I
tried to
think that's
approach
the
it.
function of folklore
Yeah,
too.
that's right. That's
Yeah.
right.
Mhm.
Folklore should do, and because of that, and we could talk more about this down the road, but like the responses have been very, like, people like it, but
Mhm.
their interpretations have been very
Which we
varied, which we
love.
want. What's meant to be
Yeah.
kind of fable like.
I'm just like blown away. I'm speechless because you guys have like call them journals, but I'm looking at it, it's like, wow, that's a treasure trove of like horror stories and things like that's like films you could have for the next like 5 or 10 years from now. You know, just add your different flavor to it, which is wow. We're not even at the final door. Like I was gonna ask you, like, what's the creepiest thing? And like both your stories are just crazy. My goodness. Wow, this is great. But so Barrett, like your work blends like morality, mythology, and paranoia. And Jessica, this is your directorial debut, right? So how did your creative roles complement each other in shaping this story?
That's a good question. Do you want to take
Yeah.
that or me?
You can take it first and then I'll.
Okay. Well, to your point, generally we work well together, and I tend to write and direct, and Jessica's such a great producer, and that's what she does on all of our creative projects as well as professionally, and at least in some capacity, she's usually on the producerial team. As I was shaping this story with our super talented screenwriter Daniel too, who is the screenwriter for the feature expansion of this world. I knew I wanted to say something kind of potent and that could sort of be subversive, and so we had the bones of like the place that we wanted to go and live in. But two things. I kept running into like kind of story snags where Jessica would just give such like insightful, fantastic insights and like
Married partners, so
observations.
we
Yeah, we're
talk about
married, and so
everything.
we talk about it. And secondly, a lot of those were on the basis of gender, were on the basis of like, she's like, that doesn't feel like a choice a woman would make, you know. And here we are trying to write these motivations for these two women, and the whole thing is just like, it is by its very nature like the motivations of the characters cannot escape the sort of sexuality, the sexual sort of overtones of the thing. And we kept running into roadblocks where Jessica would be like, I just don't find that believable. What if, you know, she did this, and that's kind of what pushed her to make these choices. And finally, I was just like, you should be directing this with me, because like, you know, it's so much, even though we don't have any experience with that lifestyle, it's so much like a woman's story, and not just a woman's story, but it has these choices and these motivations that, you know, apart from anything kind of performative, it's just truly authentic for Jessica to be like, hey, I think, you know, I don't want to speak for you, but that was my motivation inviting her to direct. And then everybody was like, oh, do you think you're going to be married when you're done? You know, and we were like, what does that mean? And you know, apparently that can go sideways. But I felt like we really complemented each other, especially kind of we both kind of let me be the person to deliver the news to the crew and the cast, because I'm used to it and it was efficient and quick. But we never stepped over each other, and we'd never move forward with a decision
Fully aligned.
if we weren't fully aligned, and we didn't disagree in front of anybody. So if we had a difference of opinion, we'd sidebar and remove ourselves until we were like, okay, I see what you're saying, here's what I'm thinking, until we find a synthesis and then go. And that said, there were definitely scenes where Jessica fully stepped in and directed because they were important to her, and she had an even clearer vision than I did. And most of my notes would just be like, okay, we just have to make sure for camera purposes or for the edit that we get such and such. But when it came to story, oh yeah, sorry. No,
Well,
please.
I think I was just going to say, I think depending from scene to scene, we also leaned on each other's strengths and sort of complemented in that like co-directing relationship where, you know, in terms of just like our different personalities too. Barrett's really good at, you know, having a loud voice, like moving really quickly, you know, thinking through things very strategically. And I tend to be a little bit more contemplative and kind of take time to think through something. So, like one scene in particular is we, you know, we had a decent budget for what we've had the opportunity to work on so far for this project, which we were very grateful for, but it was still low budget. And
Very
so
tight.
we didn't have the option to really do very many takes of some of our effects. So during one scene in particular, it was just the pressure was on, you know, nobody wanted to mess up. Um, and so after getting the first take, I felt pretty strongly about the timing of it. And I said, I really would like to step in and help us kind of slow it down and just
Which was
count
good.
through this. And I think that was beneficial for just taking a moment to pause and like us finding opportunities like that to sort of, you know, lean into each other's strengths. And yeah,
She's nicely saying I was trying to move on. Jessica's very calmer. We got it.
I just want to feel real. You know?
Let's start. It was the right move. She was completely right.
uh, but you know, I think both of us kind of had some anxiety about directing together, even though we felt like it was the right choice for the story because, you know, we didn't want it to be something that was a challenge for us, like as a couple, but then we also didn't want it to be something that would get in the way of the production of the story. But actually, I think we were both kind of pleasantly surprised at how easy it was to work together in a directing capacity. I think that with more complementary separate roles like director versus producer, you expect certain things to be taken care of by the other person. And sometimes that can create just a little bit of, you know, healthy tension. But it was kind of fun to share the same role
Yeah.
and just be creative with each other.
Yes, and there was no director one, director
No,
two.
yeah.
We're completely equal,
Mhm.
equal authority.
That's
And
great.
yeah, that was
Yeah, it
important,
was yeah,
you
it
know?
was really actually, I think, like, fun and rewarding for us to experience that together.
Yeah,
Cool.
yeah, sure.
So, another cool moment that I just have to talk about is Doug Jones. Like, so this brings me to now, like, where are we now? This house is like a maze, the basement stairs. So, don't be too scared. You'll have a lightning round where you get to answer questions to try to get out of it. But until we get there, Doug Jones, like, he's such an icon of creature performance. And, like, in this short film, like, what was the moment you first, how did you get him? And two, what was the moment you realized, like, wow, this is really happening? Like, Doug Jones.
Yeah,
Um,
good question.
they're kind of the same moment. So our producer, Celine Anderson, and myself, we were at Film Quest, which is happening right now, actually, 2 years ago. And so the film premiered at Film Quest 1 year ago. I want to say this very night, but I don't. I don't think it was like October.
I think it was
Or 20 minutes before Halloween. Yeah. Mm. But it was at Film Quest a year ago that we premiered. Well, the year prior, Film Quest in Provo, Utah. You know, where we don't live in Utah, but we were living or had just moved from Utah or something like that. We used to live in Utah a few years ago. So Film Quest was very easy for us to go to, and we were kind of locals. And that's important because we know Jonathan Martin, the director, the festival director. And so Celine and I were at one of these parties and for Film Quest, and Doug Jones was there as the guest of honor for the festival. And of course, he's mobbed with people.
Yep.
Everybody wants to talk to him,
Yeah.
and they're all pitching stuff where people are like, "Oh, hey, Doug, like, will you be my fighter and my thing?" You know, and he's like, "Oh, yeah, have your people contact." He's very kind.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, I'm looking at him. Celine's watching him. She's like, he looks exactly the way that you guys kind of described you wanted your angel, because this is part of the folklore, is that there is within this kind of Mormon mysticism, you know, very esoteric stuff. Most Latter-day Saints wouldn't even know this because it's old stuff, but it's like you have to be careful about trusting an angel that has like sandy colored hair. Like that's one of the identifiers.
This is kind of
Really?
lesser known lore.
Yeah,
about
lore, you
city
know,
spirits and stuff.
and you know, because that might be Satan, you know, or something like that. It's so specific.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
yeah, it's so specific. And so anyway, Doug's over there and he has sandy colored hair and he's like lean and tall
Ethereal,
and ethereal. And I had been kind of thinking like you know, like a Bill Skarsgård, or I cannot remember his name, but the young guy who plays Vecna in Stranger Things, like that type, you know, that kind of, you know, the turn season 4 when he's a guy. And I guess that's a spoiler, but that's been out for like a year.
Yeah, yeah, I saw it. It's okay.
Well, and so anyway, but I see Doug and it's like, he is perfect. And he's so well known and he's so just like so talented. And Celine's like, you should go talk to him. And I'm like, I don't know. I don't want to, you know, like make him uncomfortable, but everyone's shooting their shot. And she's like, what do you have to lose? Just ask him. And if he says no, no, and you don't even have to cast him. So I'm like, she's right. Let's go over. And so I walk over to Doug, and on my way, Jonathan, you know, the director of the festival, stops me. He doesn't know anything about our project. We're there with the feature script that year
but he hadn't read it.
but Jonathan hadn't read it and he didn't know anything about what we were doing. But he saw I was on my way over to talk to Doug. So he was like, hey, little pro tip. Dougie, you know, his buddy, he's like, Dougie's always wanted to play an angel. And I'm like,
No.
cast him as the angel. And I'm like, what? And he's like, yeah, just, you know, if that helps you, I don't know if that changes your story or whatever, but like, and so I literally at this point with like newfound like holy confidence, you know, where I'm just like,
Yeah.
thank you, God, for, you know, blessing our thing. You know, our demonic horror, like Southern
Like an
Utah
angel.
thing, but with that, you know, with
Yeah.
this like angel question mark.
Yeah.
So anyway, I walk over to him and I start talking to him and I'm like, hey, I just, you know, hi, Doug. I love all your stuff in Guillermo del Toro's movies and Hocus Pocus. And he's like, he's so friendly. He's like, oh, my dear boy, my sweet.
And always
Just yes, and he's very, but like so
So loving,
grandfatherly and
gentle.
kind, and he's just a decent person all the way through. And so he's like, oh my sweet. He's like, you are so precious.
He feels
I'm like,
very paternal.
yeah, very
like,
grandfatherly.
yeah.
Well, and so anyway, not even grandfatherly because he looks so young.
Yeah.
Fatherly, paternal is a better word. But anyway, I'm like, so we have this project. Would you be interested in, I'm like, it's this pioneer Mormon polygamy 19th century horror film set in southern Utah. It's very much like in the style of Robert Eggers. It deals with the history very earnestly. And we're like, we're wondering if you would be interested in playing an angel. And he looks at me and he's like, you're not going to believe this. He's like, I've always wanted to play an angel. Wow. I do believe you. I don't believe the situation. It's too crazy. So so your question about when did we know it was happening? We knew it was happening right then when Doug got out a slip of paper and like actually wrote down, or maybe we got the slip of paper, whatever, but he gave us his manager's email address and was like, hey, contact him as soon as the festival's done. Let's get something set up. And then we were kind of like pinching ourselves, like, did that really happen? But then the next day at a podcast, he was talking about his new friends he had made. And then he was at the filmmaker breakfast. He got up and like gestured to Celine, Celine's sitting, our producer. Celine's like sitting right there. And like, I think he might have even put his hand on her shoulder, but he's like, I found a project from this festival.
Oh my God, that's great.
So I let Jessica know, and I'm like, hey, I think like we got Doug Jones. And
I mean, for sure, that's when we knew the project was gonna happen. And
that's right.
And it completely opened doors for us to have his involvement.
That's right.
We can't possibly state all the ways that made our project happen.
Oh, it happened because of him. Yeah. So
wow.
Very grateful to Doug. We're very grateful to his whole team, to Bruce, and to everybody who made it happen. He was so generous with us with our very small budget, and and he was incredible.
Filming in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, filming in the middle of nowhere. He was just really easy to work with.
Wow. Wow. That's you know what? That's amazing. And that just shows when you have the right energy, it's like the stars align. And if something's meant to be, it's meant to be. So you had Doug on set and you had like the rest of the cast is stellar when I watched the film. So was there a creative role you broke on purpose to make this film? Or you didn't break any rules, creative rules? You just, everything that you thought out just went through?
That's a good question.
Oh, you have such a good question.
Thank you. The house.
Any major?
We didn't break any SAG rules. So
Yes,
what I will
true.
say is like
We did
we
not.
had to be SAG, and we had some SAG rep there in Utah, and like and actually maybe I'm more used to breaking, maybe not creative rules, but like being really scrappy and really guerrilla to get just the, and then on this one we had to keep those rules. But in terms of a creative rule, I'm trying to think of one we might have broken. No, I mean, what I'll say is that like we stole more than I've done in the past.
Yeah, we actually haven't even talked about this very much, I think, in any Q&A or interviews, but we
stole some things from Bergman in with Persona and the Seventh Seal, and I don't feel bad about this. This was what you're supposed to do. In fact, all the best filmmakers remind us that we need to be stealing from the greats more often. And so for a lot of our composition, for a lot of our our shot list and our blocking, it was like, we can't screw this up. Like, this isn't the time to be, trying something insanely new. This is the time to be relying on what works and what works classically, not just kind of in a mundane way, because, Bergman is, it's like.
Yeah, we felt like we needed really strong references.
Yes, great references. So Picnic at Hanging Rock was one too that we were looking at in terms of the style. Okay, here's something we did. Here's a rule we broke. We didn't shoot on film, but we scanned it to film. We printed it. So we shot it digitally with the plan always to print it to film.
Edit the entire post process and then printed it to film.
Printed it to
scanned back
16 millimeter. And that was in part so it would have that 16 millimeter filmic
grain
texture, and it's real. It is printed on film, if you notice. But that's a rule we broke, that we didn't shoot it that way because we were trying to do something simple and well rather than bite off more than we could chew and kind of, which I've done that before.
But we have that quality too.
Yeah, that's right.
Wow. 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 That's, man. So how long did it take you to shoot the film?
Oh, yeah, that's a good
So
question.
let's see. We finalized the script. Well, I think you and I discussed some of the major story shifts like in the fall, like a couple months after Film Quest, once Doug was already attached.
Yeah.
We solidified the story probably like early in the winter, like January,
Or like spring.
February. And we went into pre-production massively in like February and then March. And then we actually did our filming in blocks, which was really helpful for us with a scrappy budget. We filmed our first 2 days with Doug Jones, and we completed that like a month before we did the second half. And we had like almost enough funding to do all of it, but what we were able to do is show some selects from that first block and get like that extra push funding to do the second block.
It's like if we can only
even
shoot
better.
with Doug.
Yeah. So truly at some points we were even like, well, even if we just get a few scenes, like maybe if that's what we can do and do really well, like that will serve its purpose. Because this project is a proof of concept. But then thankfully being able to like show Doug on screen to interested investors gave us the opportunity to complete the entire story. So yeah, we completed filming in May of that year, and then we're in post-production, and then we premiered at Film Quest at the end of October.
Yeah. But shooting it was 5 shooting days, 5 production days, 2 in Kanab for the cave stuff, 2 in Provo for the interiors, and then 1 in Capitol Reef National Park for all the exteriors of the,
all our landscape.
Wow. And you guys had great weather every day?
We really were quite fortunate.
Did.
Yeah.
Wow.
We were lucky that way. I mean, thankfully, the 2 cave days were in a cave. And
Yeah.
so if it had rained, that would have messed us up a little bit. And the Capitol Reef stuff was very windy, which we needed. It adds some motion and some,
little texture.
Yeah. But yeah, good weather for all of it.
Wow. So here, you guys have to escape the basement, but before you do, you have to go through a lightning round. And so this is you basically answer in one word. I'm going to ask a series of like very short questions and we're going to get started. And either one of you can go first, doesn't matter. So, Doug Jones on set, angelic or terrifying? Like playing the character. That's what I mean. Both. Yeah, Jessica, you agree?
I would have to agree, both.
Okay.
Yeah.
Practical effects or digital?
Practical.
Slow burn or immediate dread?
Slow burn.
One word, blood, fog, or fire?
Blood.
I think I'd have to agree.
Silent horror or orchestra score? Orchestra score, which creates more dread?
Sorry, what was the first one again?
Silent horror or orchestra score? Which creates more dread?
I think for me, probably silent horror.
Silent horror. Yeah.
Okay. All right, guys. Yay. You escaped the basement, and I heard a call in the attic. And so with this call, I want you to let us know, like, what's really pushing you forward. Like, you have the angel. Like, what's your next project? What's coming up?
Okay.
Yeah, so the angel was a proof of concept, obviously, for a feature project. So that's our big focus, is development for that and securing the financing we need and other resources to get that off the ground. Yeah, that's a huge one. We have some other things that we're involved in as well, and always lots of ideas that we're tossing around. I don't know if there's anything specific you want to mention.
Well, I would just say that we're moving toward the feature version called The Third Watch. We have some other projects. There's a short that we were fortunate enough to win a competition with here at Film Fest Knox here in East Tennessee. And that put us into a development lab for a feature, a drama. And then we're working on we're in talks with a pretty notable film studio that it'd still be more kind of indie level, but with some excellent distribution. The trick has been not letting all these things kind of cannibalize each other with time. I know that's definitely been the case for that drama feature, getting that written. But what I will say is that we love this project the most right now. You know, if any of those things take off for us, we're really grateful that we have a lot of irons in the fire. But we would like to see the Third Wife come together, and we do have a lot of momentum and a lot of interest from both some production, you know, co productions, and then also from some investors. And so we'll see what happens.
Wow. So, like, how do you guys balance everything? I mean, you have so much going on, like, so you don't prevent any burnout for yourself. I mean, I'm still trying to learn that.
I don't know. I guess we try to take things a day at a time. We also are balancing like having a family. We have a daughter together, and so we on a personal level, like we'll kind of try to take turns. If he's traveling or like going to a film festival, we have to be kind of judicious about deciding which of us is going to go do that, just because we have other responsibility. I also work full time as a producer right now for a production company local.
And I freelance direct, and so
Mhm.
between those, and then the parenting, and
Yeah.
then the you know the preschool for our daughter, and then our community at home, and our community, still in Utah, and filmmaker. It's a lot, I
Yeah.
think.
We try to, I think, approach it a day at a time and, figure out how to prioritize things. And I think something that's nice about both of us caring about the work that we're doing is that we support each other in it. And there's no sense of like, why are you spending time on that? Like we
Yes.
fully support each other in our careers and trying to make our projects happen.
And I hope this shows up in our film, in our piece, but we're centered on the same core, kind of ideology and values and community and hopes and dreams. and
Mhm.
and that, I think amidst the chaos, we can come back to that's really nice, to be able to come together on unity, on the things that really matter to both of us, the things that we really deeply believe in the face of all of it. And we don't want to sound like looking a gift horse in the mouth. I mean, it's a good thing, and I would rather be busy, especially in this industry. And who isn't really? That's why I
Yeah.
kind of like balance. It's like, well, you can balance everything when there's not much happening. And I think it's something we should always be like trying for.
Yeah.
But yeah, go
No,
sorry.
no, it's okay. No, I think that's great, and I love your guys' dynamic and everything, and I think it's great that you support each other. I mean, and you just give each other time to like grow and just like come together. I mean, especially with the burnout. Like I was just telling my cat a couple of minutes ago, I'm so sorry I didn't get a chance to play with you all these weeks because I've been at the festival. She just looks at me as she opens her eyes a bit while she's taking her 6 nap, but whatever. I know. So that brings me to the final room, and that is, or the final door. As
S-
we, you guys,
Yeah,
you
there's this thing, haunting of Hill House for sure.
first off, I love the movie. Oh, and the TV series. You're talking about the TV series or the? Okay, yeah, I loved it. I loved it. Thank you. So, what is each of you? I mean, we already talked about creepy stuff in the beginning, but like, what is the most creepiest thing that's ever happened to you guys? And what is the most coolest thing that's ever happened to you guys?
Ever, or in conjunction with the movie? That's ever happened to us ever in our lives, or
Ever in
for?
your life, anything creepy or anything, it doesn't have to relate to the movie, anything creepy or cool that's happened to you? Creepy and cool.
Yeah.
Okay, I have a creepy one.
Okay.
You go.
Um, and so I mean, it's very apparent that like in our film we have a Latter-day Saint background, and I was one of those missionaries with the name tag, um, for our church, and this was over a decade ago. But where I served my mission, there was this road that all the missionaries come up with their own folklore and stuff. I mean, there's so many stories you could just mine just from that, of like going and living this isolated life with a bunch of other guys that you're out spreading the good word, and people don't have really any idea who you are, what you're doing, other than like, I guess the musical. And but within these contexts, kind of lore develops, right? And there was this road like deep in the town where I was serving,
Yeah.
that all the mission, yeah, 8900 West, where
Oh,
all the missionaries were like, never, never go down that road. And I was like, I'm kind of a skeptic. And so I was like, yeah, I don't know. I mean,
It's all in your head.
I feel that like conviction and belief are strengthened by interrogation and by like kind of like really deciding what it is that you think, and on the basis of being well informed. And so even there as a missionary, I was like, yeah, this seems like it's just total BS. But I did walk down the road one
my
time,
God.
and I didn't know I was on the road at the time. And with this first companion I was with, we both were like, is something off? Something feels really bad. Like the feeling of like when you're getting watched or followed or whatever. Well, then we turned the corner and kind of felt better and looked at it, and we were like, we were on that road that the other missionaries say never go on. So I had this my own like little experience with this, right? Well, so then that companion leaves, I get a new one, and I'm training him. So he's brand new to being a missionary, and I'm telling him about all the things. And one of the things I tell him as we're passing it is like, hey, we ought not go down that road. The other missionaries say not to. I think it's kind of folklore, but I have my own weird experience with that. You can call it spiritual, you can call it whatever, but like you kind of need to trust that intuition when just this like that specific place, maybe there's a house there, something feels dangerous. And he kind of gawked at it, and he was like, I think that's just nonsense, and I was like, okay, I mean, we can try it if you want, but I think it's a bad idea. And he's like, let's do it. And so he turns this is where it's going to sound like I'm a storyteller, but you got to trust me on this because this happened.
Okay.
So
Okay.
we turn this road, and we're walking down it. Elder Keelis was his name, Angelo Keelis, and he's walking ahead of me. We're just walking down the road, and like it felt like freaking Lord of the Rings, where the road stretches out with
Wraiths
the
are there.
with that ollie effect. It's like the clouds all came in at once. Something was wrong. But then what literally happened, because we all have our feelings that we can interrogate, SIBOs and whatever, but like what literally happened is this woman walked by us, probably in her 60s or 70s, and looked up at us and cackled. She's like,
Literally,
and
yeah.
she looked at us, she looked at Elder Keelis, who's ahead of me. She's like, you boys are brave. And like, we're walking, and Elder Keelis is just looking at the ground, and he like turns, he's like, bro. He's like, did that woman just say you boys are brave? And I was like, that's what she said, dude. And like, as we're trying to get down the road, like 5 houses on either side of the road, everyone came out of their houses and walked to the edge of the road. They all had like little gates and little picket fences, but they all walked to the edge of the road and like looked at us right at there as we're walking down the road. And Keelis was like shaking. And we finally got to the end of it and turned it. And then it's like the sun came out
Oh
again.
my God, they let you go. That's what it was.
They let it.
Oh,
I have never in my life had something else like that happen where like, 10 different households have everyone come out of their house at the same time and walk to the edge of
That's
the
so
road. And it
scary.
felt coordinated, cult-like,
oh my God.
what's going on about Mormons, but that felt like a cult to me, is like having a bunch of people come
Oh
out
my God.
surround us. And
That's
anyway, sorry, that's a long story.
no, that's scary. Wow.
No.
So
And
creepy.
when we lived in Utah, like I did drive my brothers-in-law down that road one, like, hey, this is the famous road. And they were like, this is bad.
We don't want to be
They're
on
like,
here.
something's
Yeah.
wrong here.
Yeah.
Something bad is happening here. It's like, welcome to Derry, welcome to the
Whatever.
Oh my God. Wow. Oh, Jessica, now I'm scared. Jessica, I don't know, man. Oh, wow. Yeah, let's go. It's the Looks Creepy Cool podcast.
Mine is not nearly as narrative, but yeah, I think probably the creepiest like life experience for me, and it's not even necessarily one particular moment, but was actually after giving birth to my daughter. She was born in the middle of the winter, and we still lived in Utah at the time. So it was very, very dark, very, very cold. And we lived on the top floor of a condo. And I just remember like there's a lot that, can be kind of common, like postpartum, especially having like heightened anxiety. But I just remember like, especially at nighttime, like getting this anxiety about knowing that I wasn't going to be able to sleep. Because mornings just don't. I mean, sometimes you have unicorn babies that will, but most of the time they don't sleep through the night, which also just like exacerbates all of like the hormone changes. So yeah, something that actually really interests me, I think, in horror as a genre is when horror is just about life and how life is horror. And that I think exploring horror as a genre in film is sort of us like trying to make sense of things that happen in real life, you know? And yeah, like I remember feeling all this anxiety as the sun would set, like knowing that I wasn't going to be able to sleep. And then just any like little sound or like kind of seeing things in shadows and just imagining stuff and just feeling very nervous about like the vulnerability of a tiny little baby. Like anything could happen to them. Like, are they still breathing? Are they still
Yeah.
can I close my eyes? Are they going to be okay? And we kind of explore this in our film a little bit. And actually, when we were preparing to direct the film, I don't think I'd really heard this term, but I'm really interested now in like sort of the sub horror genre of like gyna horror, um, of like women's issues in horror, especially like body horror. Um, and I think that it's really cool to see as like more women's voices are in film, we're seeing more of a representation of some of those experiences in like a very visceral, true to life way. And like one of the biggest honors for me from our film is that someone who had an experience that we deal with in the film approached us afterward and said like I can't really say that it like made me feel better about what I've been through, but I felt like I my voice was heard or like my experience had been seen. And I was like, yes, I'm so glad that happened. So, but yeah, I think just the experience and like the fears associated with motherhood, especially in like those early postpartum days, is probably like my creepiest time of life
Mm.
experience.
Wow. Guys, I'm like blown away, but like you have to answer a cool question. I don't even I'm just like I've done a lot of interviews for the podcast, quite a bit already, and this is just really takes the cake. I mean, both your guys' stories. So I guess so what's the coolest thing? I
No.
well, well, Barrett, I would say the coolest thing was that you and your companion got out of the road, luckily, and saw the sunlight. But I guess what is the coolest thing that's happened to you?
Oh gosh. I mean, that's such a I love that question, Renee. Can I just say, by the way, because such a like it's such a grateful question. It makes you feel a lot of gratitude. As I was like going through things, I'm like, oh, is that cool? That's cool. And I'm like, feel happy, like that's a nice question to ask somebody.
Oh,
I don't
thanks.
know if this is the coolest, but it certainly felt pretty darn cool, and it's fitting for the context. I don't want to sound immodest about it because it was very humbling, but it was very cool, which was selling my feature film Cryo that I made while I was a student at BYU, selling that to Saban Films and having a theatrical release, and it can be streamed now on like I think Tubi and Amazon, YouTube TV, and all these other places it's available to stream or buy. This is several years ago that we sold it. But like going to a theater in the town where I'd gone to school and seeing my own movie being distributed by a real distributor that I'd made as a student, and bringing my professor with me and having him give me notes on my work as we just sat in the theater. That was just it was so I'm so proud of that. And like cryo is not like cryo has a lot of things that I think I could have done a better job with for sure um as run of the mill sci-fi thriller. I don't think it's anything that is the best film ever made, or it's anything particularly outstanding. But as a student film, and with the incredible team that we had and the cast and crew and the tiny tiny budget we made it for, I'm extremely proud of it. And like that was maybe the coolest moment of my life, at least to that point, was watching my own movie there. So even though this is about the angel, if you want to watch a very very slow burn but one a cool twist, you can check out Cryo at any of those places.
Wow, that's awesome. And Jessica, what about you?
Yeah. So truthfully, I think the most sincere answer, as I'm trying to think of what to say about this, when I saw the questions in advance, this was actually the one I was the most like, oh, man, like what's the coolest thing I can talk about? I think actually being partnered with Barrett creatively and on our projects is
Oh,
like
that's nice of
consistently
you.
one of the coolest, like both personally and professionally.
Can I change mine to something?
I feel that
Mine's
way when
like,
I
it's my movie. It's
no,
you.
no,
I
but
feel
truthfully,
horrible
like
now.
I feel like
So
confident based on like the experiences and like skills I've been able to develop as a producer and stuff. But I don't think I would have like jumped in as fully into filmmaking if we weren't together. And I feel inspired and excited about all of Barrett's ideas, and like we've decided to do this together as a
so sweet.
partnership.
I'm gonna
But
cry.
it's also just like it's very, very special and cool to always like hear his new ideas, and I just like fully believe in him as a writer and director. So I'll give a shameless plug for
Oh, it's actually our wedding day, which was our 10-year anniversary we just had.
actually that
That
was
was
really
really cool.
cool.
We did just go to Istanbul.
We just got back from Istanbul, Turkey. We got to the festival there, which was very cool because it coincided with our 10-year anniversary. So I'm like, what more could you ask for than like celebrating being together and like showcasing a project that you made together?
Yeah, like this kind of feel like one of our children.
Yeah, I mean,
Wow. This was so great, guys. Well, thank you so much for coming on the Creepy Cool podcast, the Looks Creepy Cool podcast, and I hope you had a great time. So yeah, thank you so much. And to the watchers of the house, or the audience, I should say too, but you guys are the watchers. It's what I call you. So if it looks creepy, it must be cool. Follow the fear. The house is waiting. Have a great night. Bye. Have a good night. Want more chills and chatter? We're streaming on all podcast platforms.